Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here with 3 Topics Gamer, and I'm here to share with you one of my discussion videos, just talking about a random topic that has recently occurred, and I think it's something that I just would like to share my own personal thoughts on. Now, this whole report just kind of comes off a couple days after a discussion came from the former game director from Band Studios, who's responsible for the game of Days Gone, had actually come out and stated that despite the fact that Days Gone had actually sold so well, the studio themselves was meant to feel that it unfortunately was a bit of a disappointment. Now this kind of comes at the same time as it was recently announced that Ghost of Tsushima, or Tsushima, depending how you say it, had just reached 8 million sold copies, which is impressive because Ghost of Tsushima is a fantastic game and I just cannot wait until we get a sequel. But I was also, in a sense, kind of hoping that the same thing would happen with Days Gone because despite how flawed that game was, I even went on my way and got the collector's edition, and when I reviewed it, I gave the game like a 7.5, and I even stated that despite the fact that the game had some flaws, I think that if they had fixed a couple of game mechanics, maybe make the story a little bit tighter, add a few new characters that can actually give us a little bit more information and even explore a new area, that game could easily guaranteed be like an 8.5 or a 9, and I was hoping we would get a sequel from Bent. But after hearing that, Sony themselves said that they weren't interested in a sequel, and right now, as we know, that Ben is now working on a new IP that's going to come out in the hopefully in the near future. It kind of make me wonder: does Sony care too much about scores? Because I really hope that isn't the case. Because I think that the thing that has always, at least in my opinion, always helped Sony stand out to me, which is why it's my preferred console of choice, is the fact that Sony, better than Microsoft or even Nintendo ever has, is in a constant state of reinventing itself with new properties. It retires old ones and then brings in new ones. And that's something that, neither Nintendo or Microsoft are really good at. So it's not the fact that they might want to move on to a new IP. It's the fact that I think that there's just so much lost potential if you don't try to push a franchise as far as it could go. And I certainly think that Days Gone is certainly a game that I would like to see continue. But there is a history of this kind of happening in the past where you would have the first entry of a game not be all that good, and then for whatever reason they don't want to continue it. Like a key example, in my opinion, is something like, people might forget this game, is something like, the Order 1886. Now, visually, this game is still amazing to look at, but this was a heavily flawed game. But despite its flaws, I felt that, just fix a couple things, and I would like to see the story continue, but chances are we probably will never see a sequel to Order 1886. Another game that is also part of a popular franchise that also kind of had the same sort of critical response of it not being too bad, but not also being too good, is something like the most recent Twisted Metal game, which came out almost like a decade ago. And despite me and a lot of others enjoying it, and despite this being like a long-running PlayStation franchise, it too kind of had like a in the middle of the line sort of reception, and we still have not received any word if we're ever going to get another Twisted Metal game in general. And there's even one game that's first entry was not very good at all, and yet for whatever reason went on to become one of its longest running franchises. And a lot of people don't remember this, but the very first Killzone. Anyone who is a fan of Killzone, who remembers playing that first game, could know that that was the game that was supposed to compete with Microsoft's Halo franchise, which is difficult just to say. And that first game is not very good. Game mechanics are all clunky, the story isn't very interesting, the game looked horrible even for 2004 standards, and yet they would go on to make probably one of the best shooters that Sony has ever created in Killzone 2, and that game would go on to make other games and becoming a 6-game franchise. And so, I think the response of the first Killzone was way worse than what we got for, say, Days Gone or Order 1886 or Twisted Metal. And so it kind of made me question, does Sony care too much about scores? Because it just kind of seems like if you choose to only focus on games that get like total critical acclaim, I think you're throwing away a lot of great potential for future franchises. And I think that having so many different diverse IPs for your console is a good way to keep things fresh and not get too stale. And that is something that I believe that Sony in general has been doing very good up until this point. So hearing the story come out the way it has just kind of has me just a little bit puzzled. Now, I'm not saying that this is how it is across the board. I mean, there are definitely some games that I've played that I don't think deserved a sequel and just weren't critically, got a positive response and probably should have had just a one and done type of thing. But Days Gone was not one of them. And I think that if you're talking about numbers and critical scores, I think, you really need to take this from a case by case basis. Because again, Days Gone was very, very successful, sold very well, and I think even fans of it, like myself, would like to see that thing continue. But apparently, Sony doesn't think so. Now, again, I think hopefully maybe down the road, if we put up enough noise, or maybe if they don't have enough things to do, maybe one day we might actually eventually get a sequel to Days Gone. But that isn't how it is now, and I'm just kind of a bit, just a little bit flustered about it. I mean, if it never comes, I'm real disappointed about that. But if it does, then, maybe they just want to take a little break, work on another project, and then come back, learn from their mistakes, and make a much better game. And I think that's how you bounce back from something like that, when you have a game that, did make some noise, but perhaps not to the highest level that they were expecting. And I just don't think that it's fair for Sony to expect that all their IPs are going to be absolutely top tier. I don't think that's the right approach. I mean, I just don't think so. So that's just so I would just like to hear what are your guys' thoughts. Do you guys think that Sony cares too much about gamer scores and they should just focus on, how sales numbers or how much money? Because again, at the end of the day, despite Sony being an entertainment company, it is still a business, and heck, they're in the business of making money. And there's no question in my mind that Days Gone had to have made them a lot of money. I mean, I don't know how much it costs to make a video game. I'm sure it's like a lot, but I'm sure that Days Gone was pretty profitable. I mean, if it sold as many as it has, well over 10 million copies. So I'd like to just hear you guys' thoughts on this topic. Do you guys think Sony cares too much about scores? Do you think they should give certain franchises second chances, or give it a little bit of a break and then come back and then make a better game? Share your thoughts with me and everyone in the comments down below. And if you like this little discussion video, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep track of me and all my future videos moving forward. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you all next time.